Nursing students, time to talk. Welcome to the Real Talk School of Nursing podcast. I'm your good and faithful host, Michael Smith. Thank you for continuing to subscribe to the show. You can write into the show at realtalknursing@gmail.com or use Facebook Messenger or contact us through Instagram or Twitter to share your experiences, ask questions, and give feedback. Thank you to everyone who started following us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. More listeners means more and better shows. Make sure to share the episode with classmates and especially underclassmen and cohorts. Let's give a hand up to those who are coming behind us. We're building a community of fun, engaged, and supportive nursing students and nurses. Don't forget to reach out and tell us if you have any announcements for graduations, good grades, difficult tests you've passed, and friends you want to help congratulate, and your announcement will be featured on the show. If you like the show, the Real Talk School of Nursing podcast is available on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Libsyn Web Player, Stitcher, YouTube, Spotify, and SoundCloud. So, go to wherever you download podcasts, subscribe, rate us, review us, write into the show, and smash that subscribe button. Remember to only leave 5-star reviews because that's the only ratings that count to get us noticed by more nursing students. We have a lot to get through today. I am so incredibly excited to introduce our guest for this episode. She's not a nurse, but her life experience, and more importantly, her perspective on life, translates wonderfully into our personal and professional lives. So with that, let's get going. She is a first-time author here to talk about her first book. I think there is some potential for reviewing the hardships that the author went through in her life and the lessons that she learned. I think there might be a bunch of things that are translatable for many students that are going through their own hardships and adding nursing school, into that. Nursing school is considered one of the most difficult degrees to get into and stay in. Nursing school isn't just about learning content. There is more to nursing school than just content, and many of the things that we talk about have to do with life. Life surrounds nursing school, it surrounds the nursing school experience, and it's often those things that derail people. And I'm hoping that the interview brings some hefty and meaningful life lessons to you as our audience. I'm hoping that we can use these lessons in our own lives and maybe even get some perspective on the lives of some of our patients' families, and how to be more patient with them, and especially more patient with ourselves. The book is called The P.I.E. Letters. In short, I loved it. It's a very short read. There are some fun parts of the book. There are some very touching parts of the book and some very sad parts of the book. But under it all are lessons of resilience and being open to lessons and blessings found in hardship and in life. So please help me welcome to the Real Talk School of Nursing podcast, Coletta Kewitt.
Oh, hello, Michael. Thank you so much for having me on tonight.
I'm really honored. So let's jump right up into it. So one of my favorite parts of the book is like when you are talking about your childhood and what you were like and what it was like growing up and stuff like that. So can we talk about some of the more important events? Obviously it's called the P.I.E. Letters. The book is called the P.I.E. Letters. So there's a lot of that happens in the book. So how did you come to baking?
Well, through generations of bakers on my father's side and family, and I grew up in our family bakery. But truly, I learned how to bake pie, best pie ever, through my grandmother on my mother's side. But I've just always loved just being around all the baking industry. And as a young adult, I traveled through Europe and was just drawn to all the amazing smells and sights of the beautiful pastry. And I don't need to really eat the pastry. It's really the whole process and the end product that excites me. My father was a master at European pastry. And so while standing in one of those little pastry shops in Europe, I just felt like I was still at home. Baking was our life. And when you're a baker, you live and sleep what little you get, probably like a nurse, in a constant cloud of sugar, which you're in a constant cloud of, oh boy, all of that goes along with nursing.
I think any of the
you know,
any of the people who have nursing experience are surrounded by a cloud of something different than sugar.
yes, a huge cloud. That's right. Oh my gosh. But yeah, we, and unlike you guys, when you're working in a bakery and a daughter of a baker, all your friends want to come and visit you at your work. But you know, they want to come and visit you just in anticipation of what they might score. And yeah, I don't think your friends really want to come and see you or talk about what you've done. But
It's like you're like a walking donut.
yes, that's right. You're a walking eclair.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. You're too sophisticated for donuts. You're an eclair. I
An
feel
eclair.
an
Yes.
eclair.
Yes, an eclair or a Napoleon.
Oh, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me. So keep telling me about the family bakery.
Well, our whole family was expected to help at the bakery, and after school, my sister, brother, and I would walk to the bakery and work until it closed. And you could always expect to see my dad hovering over the workbench, which was covered in flour and doughs. And our mother was always there, and she was very gifted, and she decorated our little pastry shop, and it was just a great combination of pastry and loveliness that tempted everyone that walked by. Um, Many in our small town loved our mother and saw her as very creative and vibrant, beautiful woman. Um, I don't know if you want me to talk about this now, Michael, but
Yeah, go ahead.
um,
Go ahead.
but so this you know woman, my mother, she struggled with demons of her own and of a very unsatisfied life, and privately taking prescription drugs and alcohol, leading to an affair and divorce. And I received a phone call that my mother, the one that I knew, apart from what the other people knew, a very unhappy, depressed woman at the age of 38 took her life. And this was my first big turn in my life. Um, I had been dating my husband, my soon to be husband, when our mother died, and was in love like no other. But unfortunately, all the signs were there of a person struggling with depression and bipolar symptoms as well. And of course, I had grown up in a household where this was as normal as apple pie. So, very easy for me to get sucked right into that. My love could overcome anything. We did marry and loved each other very dearly and filled our home with three beautiful children. These were the hardest and best times of my life. But at the age of 49, my sweet husband took his life, and this was another of the biggest turns of my life.
So, first, the knowing that, so it just Coletta just like takes my breath away, and we had corresponded a little bit about some of that stuff, and going through all the training that we do as a nurse, and even that, it is you don't even know what to say, and we're all trained to be empathetic and stuff like that, and like I even through all of our conversations, I still feel completely dumbfounded, and should you say anything, should people like us say anything, and when we hear something like that, but just that your story is like the person that you've turned into, the person that you've been corresponding back and forth with me for like 2 months now, I think, and like for you, to my listening audience, you are going to find out why I absolutely had to bring this person on to the show to share this perspective, because once you understand all of that part of her life, she has every excuse in the world to be, to be horrible and to just let everything fall apart. And you are going to find out, hopefully, hopefully in the next hour or so of the show, or however long it lasts, why I absolutely had to have her on. So first off, thank you for sharing that part of your life, and thank you for what you're about to share. So sorry for the aside of that. But it was just, oh, like, still, even knowing what was going on, to hear it all put together is just breathtaking. It's breathtaking.
Well, I my my son was in the Army in the 82nd Airborne, and
All American.
yep. And while he was there, with all the things that he had gone through in a young life, um, he called me from Iraq, which is so bizarre that nowadays you can do that, not have a letter go back and forth, And he called me one night and he said, Mom, I am so thankful for all the things that I have gone through in my life, because I'm here with all these other soldiers, even older than me, that have not gone through anything really.
Mm-hmm.
And they are falling apart. They just don't know what to do. And my son, my 21-year-old son, he wasn't even that old, but helping all these people, coming alongside of them, because he had went through struggles of his own. And so I just feel like, whatever I have went through in the past, I truly see that as a blessing. It's of course not like a fun yay thing that you go through, but you know what? If you can help someone else through what you have went through, that is just huge. That is a blessing to be able to help somebody else. So I'm honored to be on your show, to if I can help just one person, one nurse that's having a difficult time, and that she's able to go to work and and just have patience with others, and see them for who they really are, and just be there for that person even in your busyness. And that's great.
So what was some of the other kind of stuff that went on in your life? So obviously the two big turning points in your life. So keep going, keep telling the story.
Well, it's with, and probably all of you know that you could get to this point when you have turmoil in your life, then you eventually get sick. And as a kid, my stomach always hurt.
And I suppose you just assumed that it was, from all the Eau Clairs that you were eating.
Yeah. Well, I didn't really think about it. I really thought that everybody's stomach hurt, and that you just live with it. And later in my 30s, I became very sick. So this is after my mom had died and my husband was dealing with his depression. And once in Walmart, I was with my children, and I became really pale and stopped in my tracks. And my daughter said, "Oh, it's happening again." And this big wave of yuck just came over me, and I had to get down on all fours on the ground. And a couple seconds later, popped up and said, "Okay, let's get going again." But this wave of sickness just started to be a everyday occurrence. And one day during this time, I planted a row of seedling trees along our fence line on my belly, because if I stood and just bent over and planted them, I would just be so sick. But it was kind of funny. This neighbor of ours, who was just this old helpful neighbor, and he came to pull a new ditch in our field, accidentally pulled up all the seedlings. I think there was about 100 of them.
Oh my gosh.
But I was so sick and just wouldn't stop until the day came when I just hit the ball and And when the testing began, um, the doctor thought I had giardia. Um, and so and I was
Which
just so
would be
sick.
highly
And then
unusual, yeah.
yeah. And then I found out that our insurance company had mistakenly missed my name on the policy. And they weren't going to take responsibility for this. And then soon after that, I was hospitalized for a week, finding out that I had Crohn's disease. So anyway, but my busy work just came to a halt, and had to face really what was driving me. And I was forced to sit and think and really think about what I was thinking about. And I sat there in silence and realized that my mind was just going around in circles, from one bad thing to the next, literally in circles. So I just had to stop this madness and give it over to God and take care of myself for once, and realized that all my life had been running in circles trying to please all the sick people around me. And that was not working. Um, and I was just in desperate need of putting on my own air mask first and turning up the oxygen so that I could be there, for the other people that were depending on me. And because if we're not healthy, we're just no good for anybody else. Um,
And
so
that's a really important thing too, because nurses and nursing students, that's a constant. It's a constant thing, because you can't the the kind of the cliche way to say it is, you can't pour water from an empty pitcher.
right,
And you know there's this big movement right now about self-care, and I think it's a little bit overstated. I mean, obviously,
yeah,
we need to take care of ourselves, so we can't go to work
yeah,
completely wiped out and expect to help other people well. But I mean, that's again super important lesson for. I mean, again, it's
yeah,
just all this little stuff that you just go through, and it just translates so well. Again, this is
yeah.
why I had her on, guys.
Ah,
So
well, you brought up a good point. It's you want to take care of yourself, but it's not all about me. It's not about that we have to take really good care of ourselves, but it's about um, being well ourselves to be able to see what's out there in front of us
because if
and the
if
needs
we're
of other
sick,
people.
we
So,
can't help anybody
yeah,
if we're sick.
right. Yep. Yeah. So, one of the things that helped me a lot during that time, once I got well, was somebody told me about Al Anon. And that was a really great thing. And so, that's Al Anon. I don't know, do you know what Al Anon is, Michael?
I vaguely familiar with it.
So it's the the members of the family or anyone that's dealing with a person who's sick that you're dealing with, be it alcohol or whatever, but you're the person that's really the enabler.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So um, anyway, I went to that and just really learned that I just, I was surrounded by sick people, but I needed to take care of myself as well. And um, yeah, it was that that if anybody is going through that, it's just a really wonderful program. Um, anyway, but my husband wasn't really happy about my newfound peacefulness, but I carried on and was a very good um, example to our children, and really had a lot of strength through that. So, um,
So how did um how did baking kind of give you perspective on life? Because obviously that was a big part of it. So how did baking kind of spur some of these lessons, and like I'm kind of pointing us towards the book a little bit. But
mm,
how is baking from your perspective a good lesson for life?
well, I I really, well, first of all, I have to say, and I haven't told you this yet, Michael, but I baked when I was happy and I baked when I was sad. It was like my go-to.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that wasn't really, in my earlier days, it wasn't really the healthiest thing. But then later I realized that who I was and who I am and what who I am and what I have to work with. And I was able to set into place the things in my life that give me joy. So besides baking, I love to give to others, and who doesn't want a surprise from the oven? I mean, that's just the best thing,
Agreed.
and so we all have that gift to share. If it's not a pie, we have whatever it is, whatever our gift is to share with other people. In the book, there's a short essay that's called Mise en Place, and I write about the correlation of the phrase mise en place, which in cooking and baking means having your ingredients prepared, chopped and measured, etc., in place before you start. Um, so you have all those things in order, and then you're ready to let the fun begin and create and finish your product. Um, and you visualize your end result. And as in life, when I start my day in silent meditation, giving thanks ahead for all that the day can hold, I make sure all that my thoughts are in sync with my heart, and I'm able to visualize me at peace at the end of the day. And this does not mean that my day is going to include a big bag of sugar. It might be void of sugar altogether, but it's what I have made out of the ingredients that have been given of the day. And so, we've all heard that you can make the day whatever you want it to be. But I mean, we're not born with that. We have to really focus on that. And, we're not born with a positive attitude. It's a habit. It's something that we make. We pray. We rely on God. We make this day. So, does that make sense?
It's wonderful. All right. So let's pause there. We'll take a quick break and then we'll come right back.
All right.
Tired of the same old badge reel? Do you have to wear the same scrub color as everyone else? Are your undershirts boring and kinda stinky after wearing your lucky shirt through 5 in a row 12s? You can wear personality in other ways. Go to badgeladybynerdwear.com and check out her crazy selection. She also takes custom orders on a limited basis. Tell her you're a Real Talk School of Nursing podcast listener. Be nice to her and she'll be nice to us. It might take 2 or 3 weeks for custom orders, and you can probably count on a few days, depending on her actual job schedule, to get your badges shipped. I know you'll treat her like your best friend at clinicals, so go to badgeladybynerdwear.com and order the coolest badge reels out there. badgeladybynerdwear.com and tell her you're a Real Talk School of Nursing podcast listener.
You're listening to the Real Talk School of Nursing podcast.
Okay, so welcome back. So Coletta's going to read an excerpt of her book, and it's called PIE-OLOGY 101.
All right, Michael. PIE-OLOGY 101, the synchronicity of pie and life. How awesome to ponder how our Creator has put our individual ingredients so carefully together. Yet we get to choose our finishing touches and the temperature settings of the day. Sometimes we're hot, sometimes we're not. Every day is spent forming our own creation of self. Some days we also form a pie. Our ingredients of the day can be mixed up, nutty, and complicated, or just sweetly simple. Fruits grown out of even the best soil and conditions may become bruised. But even imperfect fruit can become a pie to savor. Life, as imperfect as it may be, has a multitude of savory and sweet bites in each new day. Pie in life, filled to the brim with the fillings of our choice, oozing and bubbling over and just so beautifully messy. Pie in life, any pie or day can end in failure and be perfected on the next. Pie in life presented in pieces and or just what is left over, sometimes presented well and as well-rounded as a whole. Pie in life are made up of a beautiful variety of spices and different tastes. Pie in life, overworking can make it too tough. Pie in life, tender care will always produce a perfect foundation. Pie in life, dig in while it's fresh and share that creation.
I just love that. I especially like the, bruised ingredients can still make a good pie.
I was hoping that you would mention that part because, yes, we can be out of the best, and then, conditions and whatnot, and we become bruised, and we're imperfect. We all are imperfect, but yet we can become the best and a pie to savor.
The there's a phrase that I say over and over because it just seems it resonates with me, and it's there's more to nursing school than just content, and I think where it fits in, where you and I philosophically meet really well, is there's more to baking a pie, there's more to life, there's more to nursing school than just the stuff that fills it. There's, I'll tell a story later about an interaction I had with a nursing student, but it's, nursing school has, all of this stuff that comes out of the textbooks, and that stuff doesn't really seem all that hard if you can just get through it, when I'm, a lot of times regurgitate it, but, if you can just get through that little stuff, nursing school really isn't all that hard. And what makes it hard is the life that happens around it. It's the grading schemes. It's the rules that they make about this, that, or the other thing. It's the, how far someone has to commute to get to school. It's, bilateral ear infections that both of your kids get on the same day, and your dog rips up your homework or something like that, and then you have to start it all over. It's all that other stuff that happens around it that makes nursing school.
It's that oozing and bubbling over and just so beautifully messy, right?
And at the same time, and the other thing that I really loved about it was that overworking the dough makes it tough.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you just gotta, just let it be. It's gonna be okay. Just let it be. And I love that part. So let's talk about one of the other big features of the book. One of the reasons that the book exists was the creation of a Pie of the Month Club, which I'm very interested in, and I hope I can find someone in my area who's willing to start one, so I can just eat pie.
I wish I could send you a pie.
Well, I would gladly accept it.
I wish I could send it.
So how did this start? Like, why did you do this? How did you do all this? So how did the Pie of the Month Club start?
Do you want me to give you the long story or the short story?
This is a long form This is a podcast. I'm not beholden to commercial times or anything else like that. So give me the long story.
All righty, here it goes. Well, it was it was about 4 years after my husband died,
Okay.
and I decided to sell our home and business, and it was time to move on. And with the debt that I had incurred before and after Mike's death, I ended up with $0 in my pocket, but owed $0, which was a hard reality. But then a friend reminded me that I had a completely new start, an empty slate or an empty pie plate, I guess you could say. Um, and I rented a friend's garage, which had been an art studio, and I made a small home for myself. A short time later, I called a friend in Washington State who had a daffodil farm, and I asked if I might be able to come out and work there for her. She wanted me to work in the office, but I pleaded to please put me in the barn where all the workers were boxing the flowers. I just, and I'm from Washington State, so the whole smell and rain and flowers and that valley is just beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
But I really wanted to work with my hands and not my brain. I just really needed to just have a setback a little bit. But also, all the workers were Mexican and couldn't speak English, so I was able to work in silence, and that was perfect. During my time there, I started to download all the live events onto paper. And when the season was over, I went back to Cody, refreshed and ready to learn more about who I am and where I was going to go. And about 8 months later, I put in for a scholarship at a technical college in Washington State again for pastry classes. And I had never been a student in college before, so that was kind of a big thing for me. And I was ready to learn. And I went there, and my days and nights were just really full. I worked as a waitress at an oyster bar at night.
Okay. I got to pause you there. So wait a minute.
Uh-huh.
Is this are you in Washington or are you in Cody, Wyoming working at an oyster bar?
No. Well, we do have Rocky Mountain oysters here, but no, in Wyoming. But no, I was in in Skagit Valley in Washington State.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because a few months ago I made a fake commercial just to kind of creative juice and put all this kind of stuff, and I talk about the day old fish market in Belle Fourche, South Dakota, the geometric center of the United States, and the idea of an oyster bar in Cody, Wyoming just seems kind of funny to me. So oyster bar. So you're working at an oyster bar in Washington near the ocean.
Yes.
Okay. So.
Yep. And then and then I was working in a bakery early in the morning before school. So I was running pretty ragged, and even though I grew up in a bakery, I still I just wanted to pretend I knew nothing and just suck in everything I could learn. And so then after I returned to Cody, a friend offered me his idea to start a Pie of the Month Club, because there would be all these events around town in Cody here, fundraisers. We're just a really wonderful town, and helping people in fundraisers, and I would always be giving pies. And so he said, Colette, instead of just giving pie, why don't you start a Pie of the Month Club? So I did, and it was it was great. Because at that time, I was really, I was creatively trying to find ways to make money for myself. And I had about 4 jobs, and and one of my jobs was working in a liquor store. And one night upon closing, I was sweeping up and talking to God out loud, and said, this is not really how I pictured my life, how it was going to go. But if this is how you have it planned, well, then, okay, I'm fine. And, if you have a better plan, just, please let me know. And the next, I know.
Help me out anytime here.
Yeah, anytime. And,
From sweeping the floor at the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, it was, but I mean, it was all good. I mean, it was just, it was crazy, but you do what you have to do. And so the next week, though, I got a call to work as a private chef, and I told them no because I was so busy with my other jobs, and I just couldn't fit it in. I'm just such a dork. It's like, okay, no, I'm so busy. What are you talking about? I can't be a private chef. No. So then they called me 4 more times and just kept asking, and I kept saying no. And the last time they called, he said, Colette, if you would just really listen to me, your life probably could be a lot different. And so he told me the whole thing, and I said, well, that might work out actually all right, and
so so on the 4th call, this man, did he have a name like Yahweh or anything else like that? Like he just called and be like, if you just need to listen and your life can change.
I have a funny. Can I interject? Well, maybe I should tell you this a little bit later.
Just
I don't know.
Mark.
Yahweh. This is a hilarious story.
Go.
Okay,
yeah.
We'll mark that for later.
No, go.
So,
put it right in. Put it right in.
Now?
Yeah. So we actually remember it, because I won't remember it like a squirrel.
All right. So this. So I was going to this Bible study, and this beautiful woman there, she gave, for her birthday, she gave everybody the book Jesus is Calling. And so that day I brought it home, gave it to my husband, and he thought, wow, what a great book. Well, you're supposed to read this book like kind of a daily devotional thing, but he read it in a day. And it was just so funny. So he reads this book, and then a few weeks later, I'm going to the Bible study again, and I woke up on the wrong side of the bed, and I'm just rushing around the house, and I'm not in a good mood, and I have all these good things to do, but I'm not in a good way. And Dave, and I'm going to the Bible study here pretty soon, and Dave says to me, honey, maybe you should read Jesus is Calling. And I said, I don't have time for that. No, I don't have time for that. No, I cannot do that. And so I go into the kitchen, and my phone rings, and I pick it up in a hurried way, and I hear this voice, and he says, this is Jesus Calling. And it was the most hilarious thing. So, yeah, when you said Yahweh, I just thought of that. So funny. Anyway.
So you heard him out. So the guy called on the 4th call, and you heard him out.
I heard him out. And that day, actually, too, my daughter was having back surgery.
Oh, jeez.
I was just, for the first time, starting this extra pie thing called Cinco de Mayo. And it was on Cinco de Mayo that day. And a friend and I were starting Cinco de Mayo.
I'm glad it wasn't on Easter Sunday or something. That wouldn't make any sense at all.
No. And so I made pie. She made these beautiful pottery plates, and we had this at a little gift shop downtown, and people were lined up around the corner coming to get pie and these beautiful pottery plates. So this was a huge thing going on that day. And I'd also made another big decision that day. But so after all of this, and this man calls me and says, you really should listen to me. This could change your life. And he said, so the first day that you would have to come to work is on the 4th of July week. And I said, well, no, I can't do that then, because my son is going to come home from Iraq that week for a visit. And so I'll have to say no to you again. And he says, well, just sleep on it, okay? So that night, I get home from all this big stuff going on, and my son calls me from Iraq, which was so bizarre that he would have called that night. And I told him about this opportunity, and he said, Mom, that's insane if you don't take that job. You have to take that job. So so anyway, I called the guy up the next day and said, all right, I'll interview, and um, and I got the job, and I've been there now 11 years, and it's just been a beautiful thing. But anyway, so the woman that I work for, she gave me permission to use the ranch kitchen for 3 consecutive days, and so I made 80 pies in 3 days,
Oh,
once a month.
jeez. This probably is not an easy bake oven, so you can put like more than one pie in at a time, right?
No, well, I had 3 ovens, so I could do 6 at a time, but still, it was a huge process. And then it's way up on this mountain, and so then you drive all the way down the mountain, and the first couple times I had all the boxes of pies in the back of my,
Oh my
actually,
God.
VW Bug car in the back of the car. And I would just turn around like I was talking to children and say, okay, now everybody sit still. Do not move. And we drive down the mountainside and go to my house, and there would be all these people waiting for their pies. Yeah, or I think our neighbors thought we were doing a drug deal or something, because I'd open up the back hatch and all these boxes would go out. People would be giving me money. It was just a crazy thing, but it was so fun.
So one of the cool things about the book, so it's decorated with all this kind of really cool art, and so how did the art kind of, because most of the artwork that's in the book, or all of the artwork that is the book, is made by one of your friends, or was she your neighbor?
Not really, but and all of the artwork in the book is from her, except for the back cover of the book.
Okay.
But so
how
Cindy,
did all the art make its way into the Pie Club?
So my son Gabe actually had this idea that it would be, and the whole Pie of the Month Club was so fun. And he said, Mom, maybe what you could add to this is put a coupon, kind of like a Willy Wonka coupon, that would be taped inside of the lid of the box. And then, whoever gets that gets a free pie. So I told my friend, who was also on the Pie of the Month Club, that, about this idea. And she's this amazing artist. And she said, I am going to do that. I'm going to make these. And so after she had done this a few times, one night she was standing at our gate leaving, and I'll just never forget that moment. She reached her hand across the gate and she said, you know what? We should do a book together. And we shook hands over the gate, and that was it. It was just this beautiful, beautiful collaboration of words and art. And I do have to say, and I haven't told you this yet, Michael, but my friend, a few years, because it took us a while to do this, put this all together. And then she now has cancer. And so she's been dealing with this. It's a rare form, and she's been dealing with it. And we put the book aside for quite a while, because I thought, this book is nothing compared to what she's going through. We just can't do this. And after about 9 months, I said, what do you think? Do you want to finish this book? And she said, oh yes, definitely. Let's get going on it. So we started working on it again. And my whole goal was really, truly just, let's get this book done. And so that she had it for her family, and myself as well. And I can't tell you the excitement of when the book was finished. Well, I actually didn't have a book in my hand yet, but I knew it was out. I was kind of one of the last ones to get one, but I made a lemon meringue pie and put it in a pie box and went up to her door. And I had written on the top of the pie box that I said, "Congratulations, you are now a published illustrator." And when I went up to her door, she was so excited just to see the pie box. And then I said, "Oh no, you have to read the top of this box." And I just get chills every time I think about that. I mean, she just came unglued. It was really, that was the best. You know, book sales are great, but that moment was the best. And yeah. So, and the illustrations that she has in the book are from an orphanage from long ago. All these children, she had actually got these photos of these kids. And when she actually bought this, like an album of all these kids and all of this paraphernalia of this orphanage. And she just, because she does artwork, kind of a collage artwork types. That's one of her forms. And she really wanted to bring these kids to life again. And so that's the beauty of this artwork that's in the book. All these kids that had went through so much. And anyway, it's just so deep, actually.
Yeah. Are you like me? Are you always on the go? Are you always being tempted by the convenience of fast food and the need to maximize sleep and study time? Have you ever tried meal prep, but it just took too much time and you ended up with an unbalanced diet out of the vending machine at worst, and at best, leftover pizza? I mean, we all love pizza, but we gotta stop it. Then why not try something different? Why not try HUNGRYROOT? Diet was a huge challenge for me in nursing school and still continues to be a challenge while working as a nurse. I'm always hungry and pizza or candy is always at hand. Why is it that candy is always on hand at the nurse's station? We gotta stop that. You can do better and you should do better. Go to HUNGRYROOT.com and use the promo code RealTalkNursing, all one word, RealTalkNursing for $25 off your first 2 deliveries. That's HUNGRYROOT.com and use the promo code RealTalkNursing at checkout for $25 off of your first 2 deliveries. Check them out and let me know what you think.
To the Real Talk School of Nursing podcast with Michael Smith.
Okay, so welcome back. So let's talk about life. So kind of we're toward, well, this is like one of the first stories that's in the book, and let's talk about, you know, life, some of the other big things that happened around you. So tell me about your friend Paul. Can you tell me about how you initially met Paul?
Yes. So, well, without meeting Paul, the pie letters would not be at all. That was the first pie letter that I taped on top of the pie box, just as something I wanted to share with everybody, all of my customers. But then after that letter on the pie box, they said, "Oh, I just, we've got to have more." So that's how the pie letters started. But it was just, Paul was just, well, I just believe there are no chance meetings. And I wouldn't be here today if I hadn't had that moment in my life. I was placed right at that place to meet him for a reason. And we're all put into someone's life for a reason, even if not seen by our eyes. So this one early morning, I went to Walmart to have a prescription filled, and the pharmacy wasn't opened yet. But I decided to sit and wait on the bench, and something I'm not really prone to do because I'm just pretty, well, that's why, I wrote this book, because I'm not that patient. So, but as I was sitting there, an older man came and sat down, and we started talking, and he told me that he had just visited his wife over at plot number such and such. And I told him that my husband was over at plot such and such. And he couldn't believe that we had that in common, because I was pretty young then to be a widow. We visited for a while, and it was short, but it was heartfelt. And it ended when the pharmacy opened. He hoped that we could see each other again, and I really didn't think that would happen. But I just thought about him so much during that day, just thinking that, it was just such a nice visit, and he just really touched my heart. And I was just so thankful that I had just taken the time to just sit and listen. So then, about a week or so later, it was the first day of my new job, the one that I took as a private chef, and a coworker told me that I had, no, it probably was more than a week later, but a friend told me that we had a friend in common who had been looking for me, and she said that I had helped him. And I searched my brain thinking about someone I had helped, and I just couldn't think of anyone. And then she said, yeah, his name is Paul. And I thought, well, I did meet a man named Paul, but I hadn't helped him. And she replied, oh, yes, you did. He's been looking everywhere for you. And it was then that I realized how we had helped each other, just listening, talking about our broken hearts. And it was just so cool. Paul's story, he had been a priest, and he fell in love with a nun. He had lived in New Jersey and decided to marry and move from the east to the wilds of Wyoming. And he had found work and living quarters at a private ranch. And the ranch that he moved to was the ranch that now I was working at. And I mean, that was just crazy that he had been there. And after I learned about this from Paul, I decided to add him to my Pie of the Month club, and I brought a pie to his door, and he was so shocked. I knocked on the door, and he opened it and just could not believe I was standing there with this pie box. And we just would get together and talk about life and, heartache, and just, taking time just to really listen to him and sharing pieces of pie. And then I was dating my second husband at that time. And Paul, he just said, well, you just, I don't know about him. I don't think that I don't know if I accept that. And I told him that, Dave was from New Jersey, and he said, oh, if he's from New Jersey, then he's fine. That's fine, But anyway, we just had such a great relationship, and we had just 1 year from, unbeknownst to me, he had a heart attack, pretty severe heart attack, right before I met him. And then we had a year, and then he died of a massive heart attack, almost exactly a year later. And it was just a really wonderful thing. And I would have missed that totally if I wouldn't have just taken out the time just to sit and listen to him for just a moment.
And that's, I love that. And one of because I read that, because that's on the publisher website, or at least part of the chapters on your publisher's website. And I read that, and I was just like, that is perfect, because there's so many. I mean, there's, there are nurses in New York State. So, gosh, what was it? 6 or 8 months ago, there was this huge strike by the nurses in New York State because of patient ratios, where they've got 15 patients, 15 or more patients, and being on a med surg floor, in my area, if you have 6, on a med surg floor, if you have 6 patients, that is completely unreasonable, because you don't have time, and there's no way that you can provide the care that you need, and patients deserve. And the patients appreciate so much when you can be present for them, because they're going through this, this incredibly difficult time in their life, and nurses are there, from soup to nuts the whole time. And I mean, we're not going to be there every day, but if you have a patient who's on the floor for 2 weeks or something like that on a med surg floor, there's a good chance that you're going to see the same nurse over and over again, and so you can create this connection. But there's so many times where just being present for someone else is very healing, and that's and I loved that. You, again, this is one of the reasons, one of the main reasons why I asked to do the interview. I should say begged to do the interview, because
I'm honored.
because seriously, like, you didn't think you did anything, and yet you were this healing presence for this guy who was, in an emotionally vulnerable time, and just by you being there and just by you sharing some time with him was healing for him. And I think that's such a great lesson for us as nurses to say, share some, you don't have to tell personal stories, but share something of yourself, do just be there for someone else. And we have no idea what just a short interaction, even if we don't say anything, what a blessing, and what that can be for someone else. And that kind of goes into, we have, the hospitals teach us, these phrases, and I just think they're absolutely, I'm sorry, but they're dumb. I just feel that they're these empathetic statements where you're not supposed to say things like, I'm so sorry, or I understand. You're supposed to say, I can see how that can be upsetting for you. And it just, to me, it just seems so distant and so empty and robotic. And, the, besides just being present, like, how do you and how could I, when talking to someone who's been through hardships like yours, or is in the middle of a hardship like yours, communicate, a human connectedness to the tragedy, and to communicate that we're, that we support you, and, how do we do that? Like, how can we be better at connecting with patients?
Well, Michael, I feel so inept in responding to others who are dealing with pain. And I, even though it's possibly pain that I've already gone through, and I often I beat myself up about that. But then I have to remember, wait a minute, the people that have really helped me have just sat and listened and listened. And, and like Paul and I, when we were sitting on that bench, we just really listened to each other and really connected. And we were, there was these waves going back and forth where there was, in that short little time, you're just feeling healing and trust. And, um, your heart, really shows through your eyes. And so if you truly are listening, people know that, they're very keen on body and eye movement. And, if you're sitting there listening and you've got all these things to do and you've got another patient, you've got to run, and, you've all these things that are happening. And if your eyes are even moving sideways and you're not really connecting with that person, they know that, if you can just give them 1 second of that real good eye. And, nobody really has the right answers to give, pretty much any time or at the right time. But, if you can just be in prayerful mindset, even in your busyness, and just stop and listen, and give your eye and your heart through your eye, you will be blessed. And you might not see it, but you will be blessed for both of you.
I think, like nurses are just always on the move, and we have so many patients and so many tasks to complete in such a dense amount of time that it's really easy to forget how simple interactions can really be meaningful to people, who are, again, in this vulnerable place in their lives. And it's not always going to be the medications or the nursing interventions that we're learning, that we're doing for patients. And I thought your first interaction with Paul, that you didn't help him, you just had a nice conversation, as you say in your book. So I really feel like when we're short with people, they take meaning in that, and fair or unfair as it might be, they don't understand why, I need to hurry off, why getting them a blanket might be the most pressing need of theirs at that moment, but they don't know, and I can't tell them that there's a dying patient in the next room, and that's mine. And or a 5-year-old just coded and died before their parents could arrive, and it's really difficult, but that's the job. And fortunately or unfortunately, I haven't decided whether which one. Patient satisfaction surveys are a huge part of healthcare, right? At the moment, especially, and that's just the environment. And so, I think if we know that a nursing intervention doesn't have to be just medication, it can be presence, I think is a really, we have to be more aware of our smallest interactions, and how they can be meaningful, good or bad. I mean, because if our interaction is, as soon as we're in the room, we're trying to get back out of it, that can be bad, but if you spend just literally like 15 seconds just saying, okay, is there anything, what am I forgetting? Did whatever, I think that person I think we're all gonna benefit from that. So I kind of want to end, as we're kind of getting close. We're getting close to the end here. There's 2 more things that I want to talk about, and I kind of alluded to it earlier, but so PI is what's it called? It's PI in every. It stands for something.
PIE is stands for patients.
An acronym. There we go.
Everything.
There we go. Yes. An acronym. I have English, but patients. I can't think of the word. I got to come up with it right now. So I alluded to it earlier, but I had this. There was this interaction that I had with a nursing student about a month, well, sometime in the last month anyway, and they were just like, I'm just not getting it. I'm just, I read the book and I'm not getting it. Why can't I get it? And I just, the only thing that I could really talk to them about is like, just give yourself a second. Like you can't, again, kind of, I'm not much of a baker, but I've eaten a lot of chocolate chip cookies in my day. And, I told her, says, you can't just put all the ingredients together. Like if you get the flour and the chocolate chip cookies and the sugar and just put them into a bowl, you don't have cookies. Like it doesn't work like that. You have to, you kind of got to work it around and, get it all mixed up. And even after you've got it all mixed up, you still don't have cookies. I've also eaten a lot of dough in my life, but but you gotta give it time to bake, repetitiveness, even once you put all the ingredients together and you get them in the oven and you do everything perfectly according to the recipe, that doesn't mean that the cookies are going to turn out perfect every time. And so it's that repetitive nature of learning that is going to really help us. I mean, there's still stuff that, I will learn and other nurses will learn, and it will take multiple times. It will take multiple iterations of learning the same lesson over and over again until finally just something clicks. And just because something clicks doesn't mean it's going to be perfect the next time.
Right.
And every time after that. So the lesson that came out of that, because it was after I finished your book and kind of infused some of that into the interaction with the nursing student, was that you got to give yourself, you got to be patient. And it doesn't just mean patient with patients. It doesn't mean patience with, your family or your dog that keeps crapping on the floor or, all that kind of stuff. Like, I think one of the most important people to be patient with is yourself.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I totally agree. Yep. Definitely.
So, and then it's in the chapter. I have a note about it, but towards the end of the book, you take a quote from the Bible, Thessalonians 5:14, and I thought this was one of the most powerful things that you had in your book, and really spoke to me as a healthcare professional and as a nurse. And Thessalonians 5:14 is, help the weak and be patient with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was just like, it was so powerful, and it spoke directly into me as a person, and into me as a nursing professional. And
yeah, there are
it's such a great book.
A lot of verses in the Bible of patience. An amazing amount.
But it's such a great book, and it's available in hardback, correct?
No, it's
soft
back.
Soft cover.
Yeah.
But you can buy the physical book.
Yes.
Do you know what stores it's out at? Because you can buy it on Amazon, probably where 90% of your sales are going to be. So you can get the soft cover book on Amazon. Is it in other bookstores?
At this moment, it's just local bookstores and Barnes & Noble online.
Oh, great.
Barnes & Noble and Amazon.
Perfect. Yeah. And then you can also get it as an ebook, correct?
Yes.
So I know for a fact it's available through Apple. Do you know of the other platforms it's available on? I'm sure it's on. I'm sure it's Kindle, Amazon. Is it Amazon Kindle? I'm sure if it's online.
Amazon Kindle. Right. Yeah, Kindle.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So if it's available on Amazon as a soft cover and as an ebook, I really encourage you guys to go out and get this book. I really thought that it was going to take me a while to read. I told her at the very beginning that I had a really busy month, and it was going to take me a while to get through the book, and I think it was maybe 3 days. Well, it was less than a week anyway. I was like, well, I'm done.
Yeah.
When are we going to schedule this? I will say that there's really only one thing that I was disappointed in the book. And
What's that?
well, there's no pie recipes.
Oh.
So I guess you have an idea for another book.
Well, Michael, there's so many great pie books out there, recipe books. I just, I thought they kind of had already done that. So this is a recipe on our life, right? So
I love it.
Yeah.
So go on Amazon, go get the ebook, buy the softcover book. I promise you guys will like it, and you don't have to be religious to enjoy the book. And I don't want to forget before we leave. I do want to say thank you to Son for his service, and thank you for raising him. And I'm glad he's home safe. That's something that he and I have in common, and there's a chapter about that in the book. And there's so many things in the book that just spoke to my life and common experiences, and it didn't really seem to matter. It seems timeless. There's so many things that just seem timeless in the book and spoken to my life, again, personally and professionally. And again, thank you so much for coming onto the show.
Well, thank you for all of you that help all those people out there, and your love and kindness and patience, because I know you all give it. So your hard work, and I really appreciate it, Michael, so much. So, okay. Yes.
All right. Bye now.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.
It was awesome being with you today. Thank you, Coletta, for being with us for this extended interview. I feel very privileged that you spent that much time with us. As always, a huge thank you to you, my audience, for listening and helping me keep this podcast going. There's more to nursing school and PI than just content. This podcast is all the stuff that they don't teach you in nursing school. Remember, in nursing school, the only easy day was yesterday. This Real Talk School of Nursing podcast is a Real Talk production. This podcast is dedicated in loving memory of my Grandpa Smith and Grandpa Jack. Fair winds and following seas. Semper Fi.
Sic Semper Tyrannis. Facta non verba.
Good night, Steve Cannon. Wherever you are. Annyeong kasayo. Now you go home.
If you like the show, the Real Talk School of Nursing podcast is available on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Libsyn Web Player, Stitcher, YouTube, Spotify, and SoundCloud. So, go wherever you download podcasts, subscribe, rate us, review us, write into the show, and smash that subscribe button. Remember, only leave 5-star reviews. That's the only rating that counts to get us noticed by more nursing students. Write into the show at realtalknursing@gmail.com or on Facebook Messenger. You can also join us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're building a community of fun, supportive nursing students, and I want you to be part of this crazy nursing school journey.
Talk School of Nursing podcast is a holy moly, I can't believe you're still listening to this podcast